All right, so the reason I said I talked about 168 before, and the guy who helped save the principal or whatever, his name adds up to 168, but there's a lot to this as well. It all deals with Kanye West and when he sung the Queen song in Glastonbury. It goes clear back to the 2009 VMAs with Taylor Swift, 168, Beyonce Knowles, 168. Queen Elizabeth II is even 168. He sung the Queen song. Freddie Mercury, Queen, the gay band. I'm telling you, it's all about the gay agenda. I've made videos on it previously. Also, the day Pope Francis became the Pope adds up to 168. Uh, West Philadelphia, 168. It's all about the Fresh Prince. That's why I think they're going to kill the Queen, or the Queen's going to die, one or the other, because they're going to bring in the Fresh Prince. Whatever I talked about, Will Smith went to the same high school as, oh, can't even think of his name right now, Wilt Chamberlain, and Wilt Chamberlain died in Bel Air, California. A whole video on that, like the West Philadelphia connection and whatnot. But anyway, even October 6th adds up to 168. October 6th is like 106. That ties into the Philadelphia Trainwreck. Also, October 6th on the Julian calendar is 923. And that was the day that Pope Francis visited the White House. Interesting, too, the New York Mets adds up to 168, and I talked about how they're like super significant in the movie Trainwreck, and I think they're going to make the World Series. So, whatever. Just a few other 168s. The Taylor Swift stuff, clear back in 2009, even ties into the Freddie Gray death, because it was on 9/13 or 13-9. It's also the same day Moses Malone died, and the same day that the Nightmare on Elm Street called Freddy's Dead came out. Had the first person ever to die in a Freddy Krueger movie was, like, I think it was Tina Gray. Tons of connections to it. Even, Freddie Gray, remember, he died on the same day that the Civil War began, or he was arrested on April 12th, the same day that the Civil War began, and he died on April 19th, the same day that the first death of the Civil War was, and that's the mirror day of September 13th or whatever. So, and the movie Drop Dead Fred came out on April 19th even. But anyway, also Roanoke, Virginia, 168, Bridgewater, 168. But let's move on here. A couple more things I just find interesting. Who knows? But this is the town that I live in, and this is the town that my aunt also lives in. And if you go to Lincoln, Nebraska, it's 106 miles. Interesting to me. So then I just typed in Harrisburg, South Dakota, from the town that I live in, 149 miles, which is also, I talked about 149 like 3 or 4 videos ago with number 35, because 149 is the 35th prime number even. Also, flux capacitor adds up to 149. April 15th, the day that Abraham Lincoln died, adds up to 149. So just some interesting things. And I mean, I've talked about it before, how I made that Ramona Quimby video, and it was almost like they were striking my video. So I would look it up and see it. I kind of feel like that's what's happening here. That's why maybe they chose this place as well. But who knows? Also, I just wanted to talk about, a while back I was going to talk about Mount Rushmore. And I don't know, just because Abraham Lincoln's on there or whatever, and it's the heads and whatnot. But check this out. I thought this was interesting. So this is the Keystone Service, where I said the Philadelphia train wrecked on the north corridor of this, or whatever. Anyway, Keystone Service, remember that. And Mount Rushmore, which is in South Dakota. Also, the reason I looked it up was because of the Black Hills, it's talking about racism and whatnot. And I just thought Black Hills, and Lincoln was on the Mount Rushmore. Even the guy's son who helped him sculpt it was Lincoln Borglum, because Abraham Lincoln was the sculptor's favorite president. But anyway, look, the nearest town is Keystone, South Dakota. So just kind of interesting. The nearest town to Mount Rushmore, Keystone, South Dakota. The Philadelphia train wreck on the Keystone Service. It's even 43 degrees north. Like I'm telling you, 43 and 34 are so coded around Abraham Lincoln, it's not funny. Born on the 43rd day of the year, became president on 3/4, died 4 years and 3 days after the Civil War began. Kansas became the 34th state 34 days before Abraham Lincoln became the president. The 20th Amendment changed that from the president from being president on 120, or president from starting president on 3/4 to 120, which is 43 days before 3/4. It started, the first president to begin his presidency was the 34th President Eisenhower, who was also the 43rd term president. It was to lower the lame duck period, and I believe in gematria, lame duck even added up to 43 or 34. So just wanted to point out why I was mentioning that it's on 43 degrees north. And it is significant. If you go back and watch tons of other videos I've made, they code stuff into this. Even like on 9/11, when Flight 77 hit the 77-foot tall Pentagon on 77 degrees north, or 77 degrees west. Anyway, Mount Rushmore, it features 60-foot sculptures of the heads of 4 United States presidents. Remember in the last video I just talked about all the 60 coding. Abraham Lincoln 60, Lincoln, Nebraska 60. They've just been coding 60 in recent news stories as well. So I found it interesting Mount Rushmore was 60-foot sculptures. Also interesting too, this guy is the guy who sculpted it. His son didn't really do much, but this guy was the main guy, Gutzon Borglum. Look at his name in gematria here. Gutzon Borglum. 65. Just like the year that Abraham Lincoln died. Also, Abraham Lincoln was even 34 years old in the year 1843. But, sorry to get off topic here. The guy who sculpted Mount Rushmore is 65. Mount Rushmore is even 65. And the reason I mentioned Lincoln is because Lincoln died in the year 65 at the age of 56. Also kind of found it interesting that this guy died at the age of 73 and his son died at the age of 73 as well. The president was Calvin Coolidge, who allowed this to happen. Calvin Coolidge was born on July 4th. Interesting. That just reminds me, what are the odds that a president would be born on July 4th or die on July 4th? But it reminds me of John Adams. I think I pulled it up here. John Adams died on July 4th, 1826. And Thomas Jefferson died on July 4th, 1826. I mean, the second and third president died on the exact same day, which also happened to be the supposed nation's independence. I mean, ridiculous. And what's even more funny about it is that the fifth president, James Monroe, he also died on July 4th in 1831. But check this out. 1826 is when these guys died on July 4th. So we'll go 7/4/1826 to 7/4/1831. 1,826 days. 1826, 1,826. I mean, the odds of that happening, no way. There's only 44 presidents. Anyway, back to Calvin Coolidge here. He died at the age of 60, and he was the one who approved these 60-foot heads on Mount Rushmore even. So just kind of interesting. I guess there's a few other things. I'm just going to skip over it. The main thing is I just really want to know the true reason why these 4 heads are up here, you know. Why these 4 presidents. Just makes me really wonder. I'm sure there's some other secret coding or whatever that's involved with it. But before I even move on, I just want to show one more thing here. So you got about the John Adams thing. So John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and also James Monroe. And then were the three of the first 5 presidents who died on July 4th. And it adds up to 144. Now, that interests me a lot. You know, 144 here. We got April 4th. We're at April 4th. In simple gematria, 144. Even the word 44, April 4th, it's kind of like 4-4. The word 44, 144. Obama is the 44th president, the 43rd person to be president, but the 44th president. And this number has been coded with a whole bunch of stuff. It deals with Moses. There's 12 tribes of Israel, 12 times 12, 144. But anyway, it just reminds me, when I was telling my mom about this, my mom doesn't even know what a Freemason is. And I'm like, how in the world? We got a long way to go with her. You don't even know what a Freemason is, but seriously, I just want to point out something really quick. Most people don't know this, and I don't know why, but they don't teach it in school. The first third party in the United States was called the Anti-Masonic Party. And the reason that's interesting with this 44 coding is because the first president to die in office was William Henry Harrison. Yeah, William Henry Harrison. Here, hold on. Let's find him up here. William Henry Harrison. He died on 4/4. So, interesting. And then also, he was a member of the Whig Party. Just pointing out here, member of the Whig Party. Well, the Whig Party is the merger of the Anti-Masonic Party with the National Republican Party. So, interesting, he was part of this Anti-Masonic Party, and then he was the first president to die in office. And he was in his 60s, and he supposedly died of pneumonia. But it was right after he became the president, whatever. So just who knows? It makes me wonder. But anyway, one other thing I wanted to point out today was another interesting thing happened in Sioux Falls, South Dakota today. You remember Adrian Peterson's kid, who he didn't even really know? He only found out he had it for 2 months, and then the kid got murdered, or pretty much, or that's what they told you. Well, the guy today was convicted in the murder case of Adrian Peterson's son in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I think I said a year ago, this was actually 2 years ago, last year was when he beat his kid and got in trouble. And it so goes together with the Civil War type theme they've been running in the media and whatnot, all this stupid race stuff. It's all set up and programmed to get everybody to divide the country. I mean, and it's set up on purpose by all these fake stories. Some of them are real, but whatever, it does its job. And remember, Adrian Peterson plays for the Vikings, the purple team. Then you had Ray Rice, who beat his wife or whatever, punched his wife with the elevator. He was on the purple team. And then October is Domestic Violence Month, and the color is purple. I mean, what are the odds of that? And Ray Rice was even on in the Har Bowl that I've talked about that was coded with the number 34 like crazy. So just type in Super Bowl 47 here. It was Harbaugh versus Harbaugh. Talked about this multiple times before. How it's domestic violence. It's the Harbaugh versus Harbaugh. Just like the Dolphins bullying scandal. It's a domestic violence. It's all fake and set up, but there was tons of 34s in this. Another reason I think that's interesting they would announce or have the story about Adrian Peterson's son is because Adrian Peterson actually was born in Palestine, Texas, went to Palestine High School. And that's just interesting to me because today was also the first time the Palestinian flag was raised at the UN. So just interesting, they would have an Adrian Peterson story, and he's from Palestine, Texas, and then they have the Palestinian flag being raised for the first time at the UN, also on the same day that Russia launches airstrikes in Syria. It just really makes me wonder what's to come. So, anyway, just going to leave it at that, and have a good night.